Are you okay?
Okay, what do you have in there? Just some beers. They're warm. Oh, God.
They're like gooey or something.
Oh, no. We didn't think about what would line it. Okay.
Oh. All right, well, thank you so much for coming out. Appreciate it.
Frio Trio, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to the Arlington Sports Minute, brought to you by Arlington Citizen Media. UTA Mavs men's basketball dropped their latest home game at College Park Center to Georgia Southern 61-81. That leaves the Mavs 13-16 for the season. Jabari Nassari led the Mavs with 19 points, followed by Brian Warren at 13. Their next home game is Thursday, February 28th against Texas State. The Lady Mavs basketball team continued a 3-game winning streak as they beat rivals Texas State at home 69-49. Marie Benson led the Mavs with 20 points and 15 rebounds. The Lady Mavs will take on Georgia Southern on February 27th. The Dallas Renegades are coming home on March 1st as they take on the unbeaten Houston Roughnecks. After losing the first home game and hoping to make right some of the things that head coach Bob Stoops talked about after losing their first home game against St. Louis.
You know, we've got to be able to convert down in the red zone and down close. There's too many field goals. I said it and lived it my whole life as a coach. Too many field goals get you beat.
And riding a 2-game win streak on the road against Los Angeles and Seattle, March 1st looks like a great matchup at 3 p.m. at Globe Life Park. Here with Andy Pryor, Arlington and Earth citizen. How are you today, sir?
I am good. Greetings, Earthlings.
So how have you been? What have you been up to since the last time we spoke?
Honestly, life.
Life?
Yeah. Running a campaign takes a lot out of you, mentally, physically, financially. And I've been involved with previous campaigns and felt fairly drained after some of them. This one was more draining than anyone I'd ever been through because I was the candidate, and that made it, I think, more intense.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm grateful for that opportunity. I'm really grateful for the folks who voted for me. Thankful for all of their support. Even thankful for a few of the trolls. They were fun on Facebook, you know.
They challenge you.
Exactly,
So, yeah.
exactly. They challenge your patience and your ability to stay in self-control. But honestly, all the way around, it was a gratifying experience. And no, I am not running this May. Although I don't know when this will finally be posted, but by then maybe the everybody who's already running is going to be known. But just in case it comes out before the deadline, I'm not running this May. I have no interest in running this May.
So what you're saying is you are running.
Right.
You heard it here
Exactly.
first. So
Unlike some politicians, I actually mean some of the things I say.
Yes. He stands by his
that's
word.
why you didn't win.
Well, you know what? That's probably exactly right, unfortunately. Yeah.
So like we said, this May, Andy is running. I'm just kidding.
So, as a citizen of Earth, what do you think is the biggest issue facing the city right now?
Ooh. You know, I know there were a lot of people, myself included, who thought that there might be some improvement and changes after the term limits was put in place. But I don't see significant changes in city government listening to we the people yet. I see just ongoing continuation of the previous cycle, just with a few new names attached to it because, you know, different people are sitting in those seats on city council. And but I still think that we don't have enough transparency yet in Arlington. I still don't see enough listening to what the people really believe and want. And I think we've got a lot of work to do in that area. That's on the negative side. On the positive side, I think that we've got a number of people across Arlington who are doing fantastic work to grow this community, both from a business perspective and from a volunteer perspective.
Sure.
And I think those intertwine in some areas, but I'm really proud of a lot of the things I'm seeing on the individual side of people just putting their work out there and just going for things that they believe in. And I'm really happy about that.
So what did running for the city or running for city council show you about the city? And then also, what lessons or information did you take away from it all?
You know, it's amazing how many people involved in the political scene here in Arlington don't really know who lives in the various districts. And they don't go around knocking on all those doors and talking to those people face to face and really listening to what's going on. And so I think that's, something that needs to be improved. There was several of us candidates, myself included, who advocated for more town halls and more
people, like a way for people to get the information and be involved in the process.
Yes, exactly. But also from the political side to kind of encourage those who are sitting in office to actually step out there and listen to people. And so far, I've seen a mixed effort since last year's election in that. I can't say it's been completely non-existent because there have been several steps by several people on council to improve that. But it's funny because I was in one particular open meeting. I'm not going to say where or who was involved. And the particular council person who was sharing some thoughts, it was a very one-way conversation.
It wasn't a two-way, like,
no.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And they were trying to share some information they thought would be useful and informative to the crowd, but it was very much a, hey, this is what I think, 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 and I was sitting there going, have we learned anything yet? And to be fair, there were a few questions afterwards, and they did kind of respond to those questions. So it wasn't a complete one-way street, but the way it started, I was like, oh, this isn't starting good.
Not the way that you would hope a representative
exactly
would work.
Yeah.
Like you said, not getting that feedback from people who live here, who are stakeholders in this city, and the people that are leading the city should be listening to those people. And I'm not saying that people all the time have the best ideas, but ideas can come from anywhere. I could have a great idea, and we could somehow get it into City Hall and pass it up to City Hall, and that could work. Or anyone can have a great idea, But
I agree with you that not everybody's going to have a great idea all the time, and it's difficult to filter and find good ideas. I totally understand that, but I think it's even more difficult to actually get great ideas if you're not really listening to begin with.
Right.
Or, and this is where I think the real key thing in Arlington is, if the listening that you're doing is to a very exclusive small group that doesn't change and isn't open to most of Arlington's residents.
Right. If you're screaming into your own little cone of people, then nothing's
it's like a feedback
happen.
Loop. Like, it's not
very,
gonna
very much.
If you don't get outside of that, you don't get the new ideas. You may not get the different perspective.
Or the ideas you think are great have never been tested in the real world, and when they get launched, they're like, oh, who thought of this?
Sure. Just kind of shifting gears a little bit, there have been a lot of new businesses that have gone up over the last year, in particular downtown, but all over the city. Have you come across any that you've been like, wow, I'm really glad this is here, or, I didn't know that we really needed this, but it's here, and I'm happy to have it here now?
I'm actively part of one of those.
Okay.
About almost a year ago, so right in the middle of the campaign, I stumbled across a company that was building, and they were a co-working space over off 360 called Nuvodesk.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I was their first contract for a private office for my work, and and it was about 6 months before they eventually opened. And when they finally opened, I was one of the first people through the doors to take advantage of my new space that I had contracted with, and I'm loving it over there. They just had their grand opening about a couple weeks ago before we are recording this, and it's been a great space. They've got a lot of positive energy over there. And so I'm really proud of their efforts, and I'm glad to see something outside of certain preferred districts,
I would
something
agree with
elsewhere
that.
in Arlington that
Arlington's
is needed.
a big city.
Arlington's a very big city, and I was talking with somebody else recently, and they showed me a map, and they pointed out that, and I kind of already knew this, but there are certain zip codes, both in Arlington and elsewhere in Tarrant County, that are so far below people's radar when it comes to opportunities, business, things like that. And unfortunately, the east side, where I live, is part of that area. And it was nice to see a business go into that area.
Yeah, yeah.
Because Nouveau Desk is actually in the same zip code that I live in.
That's awesome.
And I find that very attractive, that it's close, it's nearby, and it's development in a way that is encouraging of small businesses and people to step out of their comfort zone and do something new and different.
Right.
Yeah, we've actually talked to them a little bit. We're trying to get them on the show.
Yep.
To
Cool.
talk to
Trying to
them.
set it
Okay,
up.
well,
Nicole is who I met her at a
Yes.
Levitt Pavilion
Yes.
event, I believe.
Well, I'll put in a good word for y'all as well, and hopefully this shout-out will help.
So with the announcement of the new hotel going across from Texas Live with the convention center on the bottom of it, what do you think of that whole area with Texas Live and the new convention center?
And maybe preface it with, what do you think of it, and what do you think of how it is going to get there? Because it's one thing to have it; it's another thing how you pay for it, how it gets there.
Yeah, and I think both are excellent questions to ask. I mean, look, I'm not a big crowds and popular destinations kind of a guy. I just am not. If you looked at my travel history around the U.S. and the world, there's some places that people go, really? You went there? So I'm not the kind of guy who's going to go show up at the new hip happening scene. It's just not my personality. Having said that, I think there are people who appreciate something new, something different in Arlington. Right. And for them, they think it's a great thing. And, okay, I can't disagree with their opinion because that's their opinion and they're valid to have it. I think part of the challenge for longtime residents, myself included, who have seen ideas come and go over the past 30, 40 years, it's interesting to see, and this goes to your question, how it was implemented and finally come to fruition. I mean, this is going to go way back, and it's even really before my time, but I studied it as part of some of my previous activism here in Arlington is, Glory Park. Nobody talks about it anymore. But it was this, sort of, hey, we're going to renaissance that area there and turn it into the North Texas version of the Riverwalk in San Antonio. It's going to be this fantastic thing.
It was like right before the recession happened in 2008, right?
No, it was further back
Even
than that.
like in the 90s, probably.
Late 90s when it was first really started. In fact, actually,
there was another one right before the recession.
there were two versions, if I remember correctly. There was one that was proposed in order to get the ballpark approved by the voters. And they were like, well, this is what's going to come with the ballpark.
I think I've seen like renderings and stories about it.
They put a nice little picture on and drawings onto the mailers they sent out to promote the original ballpark. And, of course, nobody actually had any plans for that. They were just like, this is what we think is going to come after we build a ballpark. The ballpark came. It was fine. It was great. None of that development came. And then the second version came around, and I forget which one is technically Glory Park, but I consider them both to be interchangeable because neither one of them came apart. Yeah. And the second one, the reason why it didn't come across was because we had a billionaire who went bankrupt and lost the Rangers himself, and so no longer had a stake in the city that he wanted to support and no longer had the funds to do it either. So it's interesting that there have finally been people attracted to come and build here in this area in a way that has previously been promised but not delivered. But as with a lot of corporate welfare things around the world, it's difficult to imagine that they would have ever come here
Had they not gotten